The applicant's requesting a time extension to secure final subdivision approval for the remaining phases. Currently, the condition reads that they were supposed to have completed final subdivision approval, I believe, by 2005, which has lapsed. So now they're requesting to push that to within 5 years of completion of that transmission line project, or 10 years from the date of this amended ordinance, whichever occurs first. And then they're also requesting to delete the construction bond requirement for the Puainako Street extension. Just going back to condition C, I know this is a little out of order, but I'm just going to go with the director's recommendation and let you know what that is as I address each condition. So for condition C, the director has been consistent with the request of the applicant. So that would delete the construction bond and require final subdivision approval within 5 years of completion of the water system. Condition D, the applicant's requesting a variety of amendments regarding construction of Moaniala Street and Puainako Street. Those are the two extensions that I mentioned. And the director for that one, basically the developer has recognized that the cost of constructing a bridge over the drainage easement, let me show you where that is. There's a drainage easement that runs right along Puainako Street, just to the south of Puainako Street through the development. So the developer had to construct basically two bridges over drainage ways in order to do the first phase. One was here at the entrance and one was located here over this large drainage easement. In order to complete phase 2, the way the ordinance reads now, the developer is required to extend Puainako Street, build the street to county dedicable standards through their property from Puainako Street to the southern property boundary, which would include building a bridge over that drainage easement. The cost of the bridge is estimated to be quite high, at least I believe it was $2 million to $3 million. So the applicant is requesting to amend the condition to build the street except for the bridge over the drainage easement. So for that, the director is also agreeing with that request for the reasons stated in the recommendation, basically being that it was thought at the time that there would be funding for construction of Puainako Street back in 2008. That funding has not appeared. The state hasn't granted the funding. So the cost of building a bridge, putting that entire cost on one developer is not proportional. It's not reasonable for the scale of their development. So the applicant, the condition reads that the applicant would still build those two roadways except for the bridge, the Moaniala Street extension and Puainako Street extension. And then going on to condition H. Condition H, the applicant requested fair share fee offsets, which we typically include in rezones whenever an applicant constructs roadway improvements or provides land for parks. We usually grant a fair share offset. So in this case, the applicant requested some changes to that condition, and the planning department is recommending, again, favorable with a little bit of modification. And that basically being that if the developer constructs those 2 roadways except for the bridge, they receive offsets from their fair share for that cost. And if for some reason during the upcoming general plan amendment, if it's decided that either of those extensions are no longer desirable for regional roadway, then we would release the developer from that obligation, but they would still have to pay their fair share assessment. So I think that kind of, in a nutshell, describes the request. This is the site plan showing the entire development. You see phase 1 here, which is already completed. This is the this is Kukuau Street entering their property, and then phase 2, what is shown as phase 2 is over here. So that has not been developed yet, and that shows a roadway providing access to each lot, as well as the future Kawailani Street extension here. And then phase 3 shows, again, this roadway here providing access to each lot, and then the Kupulau Street extension in this area here. So the drainage easement that requires a bridge is located just south of Puainako Street in this location. These are some photos of the site. This is standing at the corner of Puainako Street and the project access on Kukuau Street, looking towards Hilo. And then this is looking up Puainako Street. And this is looking into the project site. You can see the entry sign, Hilo Hillside. And then this is a picture of that drainage easement area that would require a bridge to connect Puainako Street to the development. As I mentioned before, the planning director is recommending a favorable recommendation with modifications to the applicant's request. And I do want to call your attention to one item that the applicant provided to us this morning. It's about 4 maps, and I believe the applicant's going to discuss that. Are there any questions?
Commissioners, any question of staff? Okay, will the applicant or the representative please come forward and be seated at the table in front of the commissioners?
Morning.
Good morning. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth on this matter now before the Hawaii County Planning Commission?
Yes, I do, ma'am.
Thank you. You may begin your presentation or testimony by first stating your name and place of residence and speaking directly into the microphone.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My name is Sidney Puki. I'm a planning consultant, and I'm here assisting with the processing of these amendments. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the owner-developer. His name is James Pappas, as well as his associate, James Lee. They're seated over there. So if you have questions that I cannot answer, then I'll direct it to them. I'd like to first acknowledge that your staff's presentation is excellent as always, and I really got to compliment Maya, because it's somewhat like of a complicated request, but she understood the request very well and came forward with recommendations and modified some of the proposed conditions to which the applicant has reviewed all of them and has found them to be acceptable. I'd like to just kind of touch very briefly on some of the items that she mentioned and to expand just a few others just for purposes of clarification. The project is called Hilo Hillside, and it's a 143 1-acre lot subdivision. They completed the first phase, which is consisting of 56 lots. Phases 2 and 3 are still kind of pending. the reason they're pending is for a couple of reasons. One is that the zoning condition required performance by X period of time. Obviously, that time expired. And secondly, although the water system is already in place, the water department has said that until this Kukuao Puainako transmission system, which is indirectly related to the project, is completed, that additional water coming through the system would not be available. So that's that project is already funded, and they're going through the environmental assessment process, and hopefully within the next 3 to 5 years the project would be completed, at which time the subsequent phases can be completed. I passed out the map, and then all of which I think I've included with the exception of the first one. The first map is really when the property was rezoned back in 1993, way back when the Puainako Street extension was not completed, but it was projected to be the Sunrise Estates increment number 2. So this is the map that was produced as part of the traffic impact study prepared in conjunction with that application. The idea was that they were going to have access through the existing Sunrise Ridge subdivision through Kukuao Street and eventually getting to over here. So the owners then, the current owners, acquired the property in the early 2000s. So after they acquired the property, what happened was that then the county started to actively pursue the construction of the Puainako Street extension. And so that created a lot of delay because the Puainako Street extension, a portion of it bisected the property. There was a lot of engineering studies that were required. And so the time required to complete the project in accordance with the original ordinance lapsed. And so then they had to go in for a time extension. So when they went in for a time extension back in 2008, there were in addition to having the extension granted, there were a number of additional conditions that were imposed by the county council. Some of these conditions included an affordable housing obligation, because back in 1993, when the original ordinance was adopted, there was no specific requirement for affordable housing. So now they had affordable housing, so they tacked on that affordable housing. There was also the fair share obligation. And finally, the council believed that funding was available, as the staff had indicated, for the Kupulao Street extension, but that never materialized. But because of the anticipation of receipt of the funds, then the council felt that the small section within the project area the Kupulao Street extension should be completed by the applicant. So if you look at the second sheet, the second sheet basically shows and which is reflected in the staff's presentation, where the subject property is. It's all shaded in yellow, and then where the extensions are. You can see the Puainako Street extension, the one running Maukamakai, or north, up and down the page, and the other one is the Kupulao Street extension, as well as the Kawailani Street extension. So both the Kawailani and the Kupulao Street extension bisect only just a small portion of the subject property. And so it was kind of understandable back in 2008 when the council considered the amendment to require the developer to construct at least that small portion of Kupulao Street extension. At that time, the developer had agreed to do it because he was not really fully aware of the financial consequence behind making that commitment. As they then proceeded to construct the first phase and doing the bridge costs, and then they realized they can't really handle it, to be responsible for constructing not necessarily that small section of the Kupulao Street extension on their property, but also this commitment of having approximately $3 million worth of just to build a bridge over the property onto Puainako Street, the extension. So, notwithstanding that, as we were discussing it with the staff, and the third sheet, which is also reflected in the staff's presentation, kind of highlights the entire project, and then it shows in yellow where the Kawailani and the Kupulao Street extensions are. And that area shaded in orange are essentially properties that the owners have agreed to relinquish or purchase and set aside and dedicate to the county. One of the orange area is like would make the Kupulao Street extension feasible because it goes into the Sunrise Ridge Estates subdivision. The other one, of course, is like another piece of property that the owner would have to acquire to make the possibility of having the Kupulao Street extension feasible. In discussions with the staff, the whole issue related to whether, given, I think we've all have driven along the Puainako Street extension. So the whole idea was, given the function of this Puainako Street extension, whether you really want to have like another major intersection, crossing so close to each other. Kupulao Street is a major intersection, and hopefully that'll make that connection, and then that's already existing. And then to have like another extension, another connection less than I guess 800 feet away, for the Kupulao Street extension would make that might be questionable. And so I think that what the staff had indicated is that in conjunction with the general plan update program right now, they're evaluating the wisdom of maybe having 2 access points, or maybe just consolidating that, or having only a different access that would serve as a regional roadway that connects the upper Waikiuka area to the downtown Hilo and then to the Kaumana area. So that's what's being investigated. What the staff is proposing is and which is acceptable to the applicant, is that if they want to construct that portion of the Kawailani and Kupulao Street extension now, then they can do that. But if on the other hand, they can do that now in spite of the fact that the decision hasn't been made as far as whether they're going to have any of these extensions or not. But on the other hand, if they decide to wait and the decision is made to maybe delete the Kupulao Street extension as shown, then they would not have an obligation to construct. So that's the way the staff's condition is constructed right now, and the applicant has no objections to that. One thing I think that should be made clear is that what the applicant is based on the proposed condition is prepared to do is that, number one, not to foreclose any future road options regional road options in that area. So they're willing to construct that portion of although if it's undecided, that portion of the Kupulao Kawailani Street extensions within their property, acquire and dedicate to the county the portions that are outside of their property, one of which falls in the existing Sunrise Ridge Estate, 2 of which fall within the Sunrise Ridge Estate. So they're going to acquire and dedicate those properties to the county. And so what that does is that it creates the opportunity, or gives the county the option for eventual connection if they decide to do that or not. Finally, I think what I'd like to kind of also point out was that when they came in for the extension back in 2008, as I mentioned earlier, they had an obligation now to provide an affordable housing requirement, which was absent back in 1993 when the ordinance was initially approved. So in trying to address the affordable housing obligation, they worked out an agreement with the county, and the agreement was struck in May of 2012 to construct 43 affordable homes in the Kaumana area. It's a project called Kumalani Gardens that's currently on. They're seeking the appropriate construction plans and subdivision approval for that. In relation to that Kumalani project, what they're doing is it's not like a standard affordable housing project, but they're going to have a mix of affordable and non-affordable housing. So in conjunction with that overall concept, they've introduced a park, and they're also going to provide curb gutter sidewalks, so it would not look like a standard affordable housing project, but it's going to be more like a conventional project. So getting some measure of relief in constructing the bridge, what we call the Kupulao Extension Bridge, a bridge that may not materialize or have any function, would enable the applicant to make the affordable housing program much more feasible. So in a nutshell, that's the overall concept, and it is somewhat complicated, and I appreciate the staff's fully understanding and trying to make it as less complicated as possible.
Question, Mr. Fuki, for you and the applicant. Did you receive the planning department's background report and recommendation?
Yes, I did, as well as the applicant, and we discussed the staff's proposed and modified conditions and found them to be acceptable.
Okay. Do you have any further comments to make at this time?
No, but I'm prepared to answer questions that the commissioners may have.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions of the representative or applicant? Seeing none, thank you. We will now proceed with public testimony. And there is none. Can I accept any motion at this time, commissioners? Commissioner Hinkle.
Yes, this commission recently ruled that there's not enough water and too much traffic impact in this general area of Hilo for a small charter school, and I think it's unrealistic to expect that there is enough water and traffic for 143 luxury homes. So I cannot support this development, and I move that an unfavorable recommendation be forwarded to the County Council on application to amendment Res 738 for the aforestated reasons.
Any second? If there's no second, the motion fails. Is there any other motion?
Yes.
Commissioner Ikeda?
I move that the application to amend RZ 738 be approved based on the planning director's recommendation with modification to applicant's request.
Any second?
Second.
It was moved by Commissioner Ikeda and seconded by Commissioner Ono. Discussion?
Yes. I'm very familiar with this because I was on the council at the time, and in fact, some of the conditions I put in. But, at that time, one of the representatives guaranteed that we were going to get funding for the road, which never materialized, so I can understand the request for all of these amendments. So I supported it at this time.
Any other discussion? Motion for approval, roll call, vote needed. Please.
Thank you, Chair Moses. So the motion before you is to send a favorable recommendation to the County Council as recommended by the Planning Director. Commissioner Ikeda.
Aye.
Commissioner Ono.
Aye.
Commissioner Heao-Kulani.
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkle.
No.
And Chair Moses.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes 4-0. 4-1, I'm sorry.
You will be notified of the Commission's decision in writing. Thank you.